Today, there are several exchanges that do offer self-match prevention. One of the challenges is there's exchanges that do not offer it, and there are exchanges that do. And even within the exchanges that do, there's not much uniformity in how it is admin, the way it works, the optionality in terms of how a self-match prevention is handled. This standard was proposed by our FIA Global E-Trading Committee as a way to both add efficiency and also improve the administration for everybody involved in self-match prevention. The exchanges have the best view of the market book, so they can be the most efficient in terms of which trades are rejected and whether or not there's going to be a match or not.
How are traders inadvertently entering into washed trades?
Typically, it is either house business, or if you're a commodities firm or you're a producer, and you may have different offices in different areas that are potentially trying to do the same thing to offset a trade, and they may offset on the market, and it's all inadvertent. Usually it's inadvertent. What happens is when there's a code put on each side of the trade and it's identified, it then prevents that trade from happening. And the challenge there is that even if it is inadvertent, there could be and there has been regulatory fines and scrutiny on those types of trading over the years. So the more it can be prevented and the more efficient it can be prevented, it obviously lessens the likelihood of that from happening. And there's been an uptick in usage over the last 5 to 10 years in self-match prevention and interest in that functionality.
How does standardization enable automation?
Position transfers at this point are mostly manual throughout the process. Historically, position transfers were used for moving one position from one FCM to another for various reasons, but there's been a big uptick in the last 5 to 10 years, particularly around margin optimization for one, some other factors as well. And the process is there's a request from the client to have the position transferred. That's typically a manual process that's received into the clearing side of the business. The FCM then has to go to the exchange to get that approved. That's typically a manual process. Then once the approval is given, the transfer itself is a manual process. As the number of these have increased, and more importantly, the size of the transfers have increased. It used to be maybe you'd be trading 100, 500. You could be 5, 10,000 positions, a lot of positions that are being transferred. So we think one of the things we did is we published a guidebook with the standard that outlines the data and information that should be passed along, either manual or hopefully ultimately automated, from all those different hops in the workflow. And we think the client request to the FCN will probably be the one that is the first workflow to become more efficient in that. And then we also have a working group through DMIST that's working on coming up with a standard API for exchanges and CCPs to receive those requests. And we're also working with the fixed trading community on updating their messaging protocol, which is related to position transfers, to have that updated to reflect the correct data so that we're all in sync.
How costly has this fragmentation been for the industry?
The amount of resource required to maintain it on a regular basis and maintain the matching codes. If there's different ways of setting it up, or it's different ways, optionality around what happens. So does the incoming order reject it? Is the standing order rejected? How that works? All that different optionality and having it mean slightly different things at different exchanges over time adds up to a big cost to those who are involved in doing it. And the manual nature of it, like anything else, can sometimes lead to exchange or issues with really adopting it as a solution.
How do you get competitive firms to agree upon standards?
The things that we've worked on to date are things that are not really differentiators. So the firms involved don't really consider them any longer to be competitive points. As we've developed DMIST and as we've gone through the process, we've been so happy with the amount of camaraderie, the industry coming together and working to solve problems and focusing on things that we can solve together, and to your point, are not competitive. If we do have better standardization in some aspects of it, it will also allow now and in the future for better innovation or more innovation to happen. And innovation to happen at a pace where now to have all the players, you introduce a new product and you've got to have all the players involved to synchronize and to make the changes. And the same thing will happen right now with existing products, where if something new comes on, it takes all those folks to all those different parts of the ecosystem to make changes. And we hope over time, as these standards are developed and as it's more collaboration and interoperability, that allows even more innovation.
What themes do your standards solve?
If you go back to the genesis of this was COVID, right? With the backlog of trades and the give up process. And there were a lot of issues that happened there. There were trades that were outstanding for not at the right place in the rent account for up to 2 weeks. And that's what really brought the industry together was, this is for all of us, it's a risk. There's a risk with this. And if something big were to happen again, and even at the higher volumes that we have now, could the industry handle that, and what could happen? They all really focus on the workflows in making it more efficient, making it so that everybody understands what each other's doing. And that's also from a daily process, but also from a resiliency perspective. If there are outages or there are incidents like that, the hope is that some of these standards, particularly around 30-30-30 and average pricing, allows not only the growth of these workflows and more people to be able to use average pricing and create more synergies across all the different exchanges and the way you do it, will ultimately benefit the industry in all those different ways.
How do you drive adoption, and what metric tracks success?
We've pivoted our strategy to being 100% focused on developing standards, to then also being just as important, the adoption and implementation of it. One of the ways we do that is to work with our members, work with the DMIST members, and even work with others who are not DMIST members to understand how are they implementing these standards. We have issued implementation guides for 30-30-30, average pricing, position transfer already. We have the guidebook. We'll do one for self-match. We've had webinars. So it's really about raising awareness and letting the industry know that these are available and telling the stories of their effectiveness. At IDX, Walt gave a speech in his opening remarks. He showed some statistics from the tariff volumes around some of the improvements that we saw on end-of-day trades compared to previous Silicon Valley, ultimately COVID. And one of the big things that we saw there, which really jumped out, was during COVID, there were trades I mentioned earlier that were outstanding up to 14 days. And what we saw, the average aged break during COVID was around 4 days. For this time we were about 1.5 days, maybe 1.25 days. So that's a massive improvement. And what we've understood is being able to show those metrics is critical, and be able to show the success and be able to show how the industry is benefiting from these standards. So it's a big focus for us, particularly in 2026, is going to be around the metrics piece, promoting DMIST. Where we have our first booth here at Expo. We had one at IDX. We're going to be we're sponsoring a lounge area at FIA Asia. We're going to be at SIFMA AMG in February in Austin. So really promoting the standards, and part of that too is also working with other associations and other organizations. So I mentioned FIX earlier. We're working with them both on the standard, but also promotion and trying to identify synergies there. Azitzi is another one that we've been working with as well. We know that we have to get all the industry involved, and particularly the client side for a lot of these things, and get the clients and buy sides on board and understand the benefits for them. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see them understand the benefits and really steering into it.